the last time we've talked to you, the Mets are 4-1 in their last 5 games. We'll put a positive spin on things as there's always negativity surrounding the team because that's just how some people like to be with the New York Mets, but not us. This is the Queens Connection, episode number 18, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, and the co-host, fresh off his trip to the London series, has returned home, and he is here with us, is Corne Hogeveen. Corne, good afternoon where you are at. And before we get into the nitty gritty of the sweep of the Nationals and the split in London, let's just talk about your trip, overall experience. How was it over there in jolly old London?
Yeah, it was tremendous. Nice city. I didn't know the city was that nice. Um, so we did some sightseeing, and then it was all baseball after that. Great workout day on Friday. Nice that they opened that up for a couple of fans, a lot more than a couple, but not for the sold out crowd. So that was really cool. Getting to see the Mets and the Phillies, obviously, working out there and doing some batting practice, some infield drills, and getting to see that up close. So that was really cool. Saturday, obviously, not the best day of the trip, I would say, but Sunday with that ending, it it made it all good. Had a blast. Had a blast with my buddy, who don't know if he's gonna listen. Maybe he is going on a vacation after this trip, so maybe in the car. Met some new cool friends. So uh, and you know me, I'm all about the social, the being social. So not really for people who don't know me. So meeting new friends for me is it's kudos to them for being nice enough to make me be your friend, just like you, Andrew. By the way.
Well, it sounds like you might be on other people's podcasts now instead of ours. So I guess
No,
our loss is their gain, perhaps.
no, definitely not. That's not gonna happen. I do have something that might happen, but that I will leave that for after the show.
Oh, all right. We'll have to save it for later, I guess. Well, we'll have to save a lot for later because there is so much we need to talk about. Obviously, the London series happened, like I mentioned, the sweep of the Nationals. So we're just going to kind of do a flyby a little bit of that National series just because the London series was the most recent one. And I think there's a lot of interesting talking points to be had. So obviously, this is if we're going to put the over under at an hour and 5 minutes for the length of this episode, I'm definitely going to take the over on this. So
Yeah, probably will be a long episode.
long episode.
Trying to keep it short as always, but also a lot of minor league things have happened now with the Dominican Summer League added. So gonna go through it as quick as we can, but obviously there are some things we definitely need to discuss because we are a Mets podcast.
That's right. So let's just jump to this national series. Obviously, the Mets swept Washington in their first meeting of the season. They won the opener 8-7. They won the second game 6-3, and they finished off that series with a 9-1 victory over the Nationals before taking off for London. Uh, so obviously, a very good series for the Mets after that little bit of a heartbreak loss to the Diamondbacks the day before. Um, so the nice little bounce back response by the team. Uh, I talked to you in the chat. We're just kind of taking overall takeaway from that national series. So I'll let you be the first to share. What was your overall takeaway from the sweep of the Washington Nationals?
Oh, I have a lot of notes, so I have to, and it feels like it's been a while. Again,
It's
we
been
had
at least a
some
week, been over a week technically. So
yeah, it feels with all the London things, it feels like it's been 2 weeks ago since we had the national series. But um, so yeah, McGill wasn't great. Missed his spots after a couple of good starts with um, something that was off note. Torrance playing great in the 2 home run game on Wednesday, and some good defensive plays on his end. So it was a start of something we're probably gonna mention later. 2-run double on Monday as well. He just did it all in that series as well, and obviously did some good things in London too. Um, and one thing that I think we do have to mention that Adrian Hauser is a guy who got a lot of hate early on, and I think he has refound his sinker, and he looks a lot better so far in the bullpen. What works works, so I would keep it there. But it's definitely still an option for maybe replacing somebody else who hasn't really done a lot lately for us in Jose Quintana. Um, I wouldn't be against making a move like that because Adrian Hauser just looks a lot better than what he did in the early months. I did watch Wednesday's game, but it was on a train with shoddy Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi was shoddy, so it was in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's not really the best way to really dig into a game. So that's the one that I knew what happened, but uh, not much that I can say about Sevy's outing because it was just small phone, the Wi-Fi. So didn't really. I leave that up to you to say to talk about Severino.
Well, my biggest takeaway from the national series that I don't think is really going to surprise you, but David Peterson's second start of the season went into the seventh inning, 6 2/3 overall, just the 2 runs. A lot of twos on his line, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Um, but the thing with Peterson, we know that in his rehab outings, people were talking about, well, his velocity was up. His velocity was up. Wasn't really in this outing. I think maybe he topped out around 93, maybe 94 at best. But he got a lot of ground ball outs, and that's we talk about with Hauser when he's on, he's getting a lot of ground balls. Uh, Peterson's kind of the same way. He gets when he's getting ground balls, he's pretty much on. I think there's also we've talked about this before. I think there's been a little bit of um, trying to maybe a mischaracterization of David Peterson because he's got that first round tag attached to him, and I think people think when you draft a pitcher in the first round, they're going to have to be like a Garrett Cole, uh, what Matt Harvey was his first couple years with the Mets, kind of that ace caliber guy. That's not always the case for some guys. Some guys are just solid middle to back end rotation arms. I think that's what David Peterson uh, is and can be for the Mets. But we talked about Severino as well. His outing, uh, very, very good. I mean, what else is there to say? I think the interesting thing that it might have been Steve Gelbs was talking about in the broadcast, but I definitely remember it was mentioned on the broadcast that Severino has talked about, getting ground ball outs. And he's been doing that because he only had like, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think he only had like 4 strikeouts in that game. But he got a lot of ground balls, got some double plays when he needed them, um, which I think is an interesting aspect of his game now because you think of Luis Severino in his Yankee days. It was the high velocity, which he still has, but it's striking out 9, 10 guys a game, getting outs that way, not necessarily getting outs via contact, soft contact. And I think that's changed a little bit since he's come to the Mets. But obviously he's been really good all year. He's had a couple hiccup starts every now and then. Um, but overall, what you can't say really anything bad about the way Luis Severino has pitched for the Mets this year.
Definitely, yeah, it's definitely interesting for a guy who has that type of arm to be able to switch to more of the sinker. He uses more of the sinker, so wanted to get more quick outs, wanted to get deeper into the game, and he has actually done that a couple of times that he went deep into a game and really saved us. So um, something that I didn't know Syndergaard wanted to do, but never really could. Um, Obviously, Syndergaard a little bit different story because Severino still has the velo when he needs it. And no, I didn't, but it's an interesting transition and it works out well. So we now saw back-to-back pitchers in Peterson and Severino both are using the sinkers more and getting quicker outs more. So that's an interesting development. Strikeouts were always pretty high on my list, but outs are always more important. And if you can induce soft contact, then I'm all for it.
No doubt about that. And obviously, another takeaway was Luis Torrens in this series. He had 4 RBIs in this series in the 2 games he started. We'll talk more about Luis Torrens probably after we recap the London games. But it's an interesting conversation to be had. I'll stick around, listen for that. There's some interesting conversations coming up in today's episode. So the Mets, a sweep of the Nationals, so they take off from our nation's capital. Well, my nation's capital. It's not your nation's capital, technically. But take off from DC to London. Have that day to kind of get the time change, jet lag out of your system. The workout day on Friday to get familiar with the ballpark. And then there's a game Saturday and Sunday. So let's jump into the Saturday game. Obviously started out well. They jumped out to a 1-0 lead. But you knew it was going to be tough going up against Ranger Suarez. Sean Manaea looked really good for the first 3 innings. And then things started to kind of falter in the 4th inning where the Phillies put up a 6 spot, and the Mets really couldn't uh, get much going after that. They end up losing the opener 7-2. So not the most fun game they got to see over in London, but it's the first game. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance that goes with it. Um, so just that first game, Sean Manaea, which to start there, uh, just really a really disappointing outing, I would say, with the way he went those first 3 innings, and then it just all fell apart in the fourth. Um, finishes his outing with 6 earned runs. He had 3 strikeouts. There's 2 home runs were allowed by him. Um, what'd you take away from Sean in this outing?
Yeah, it's funny that now back-to-back outings where 1 inning just really uh, hit him. He had that last outing where he allowed a grand slam, so 1 inning, 4 runs obviously, and then today actually looked really good. And then I think the Phillies hitters just adjusted well because they weren't swinging over a sweeper and they were laying that sweeper off on especially the lefties. And eventually he missed obviously on Harper. That was such a big miss on his location. And you don't want to do that to that guy because he crushed that. And then it just all ballooned. Something I have said in earlier podcasts, I like when starters are able to limit the damage, and this time Shalmanaya wasn't able to. Um, and it put us in a hole, and I think there were some opportunities um, in the game to get a couple of runs back, but mostly the Mets didn't do enough. We scored that one on that great play by Francisco Lindor, that base running play, but even that inning, although it was an exciting play, you needed more than 1 run in that inning uh, to sneak into the game again. And so they left their opportunities to come back in that game. Obviously, Sunday different story, but that game it never felt close uh, after the 4th inning, and it just played out a little bit in the end. Also, if you allow a 3-1 homer to Whit Merrifield, you know it's going to be a bad start, by the way. and and the ball, by the way, I saw a lot of people on Marte's fly ball, but we were sitting right behind him, and with the speed he has right now, he just wasn't able to get there. Still a big concern, by the way, Starling Marte and his outfield play.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that because after the game, Mendoza said Marte couldn't pick up the ball for that one that dropped in, and there was the one Bader dove for that he lost for a second, had to readjust, um, and you were sitting in right field. Uh, it's a weird, uh, I guess maybe not a weird setup. We see stadiums where really the stands are covered, but the playing surface is not. I think that's how it looked to me anyway with that stadium. So they said the ball kind of blends in a little bit with the white overhang for the crowd. Uh, did you have any times when the ball would get popped up and you're kind of you're obviously watching and then you lose your side of the ball? Was that actually a legit factor or?
Yeah, we were actually watching BP. in the outfield, and I had a lot of trouble also with the clouds because it was a more cloudy day on Saturday. So I had more trouble with losing the ball on Saturday than when we did the same thing on Sunday. And on Sunday, I saw everything. And I knew exactly where the ball was going, and even if it was close. But we had one moment where the ball came pretty close in BP to us, like, a couple of seats down my right, and I totally lost it. So definitely Saturday was a day where it was more difficult to read the ball. No doubt in my mind that probably played a factor. But after I didn't necessarily see Marte starting, so I didn't saw his initial jump because I was looking at the ball instead of Marte. So so that I missed. So it could be that he had a later start due to not seeing the ball. I don't necessarily recall if I had the same issue on that ball specifically. Um, but yes, overall with the BP, with the high fly balls, you obviously see, and the home runs, you obviously see it was tougher to read them on Saturday.
And it was interesting on the broadcast, the way Marte was going after the ball. He had definitely had me fooled. He had the broadcasters fooled too. They thought he had it lined up and was gonna catch that to end the inning and just be tied at one apiece. But it dropped in, and it's something to notice too. I mean, we can talk about this probably for the second game as well. But the turf there, baseballs just they looked like they were super jumpy, no bouncy balls, and they would just shoot right up in the air. So that was also something that they had to factor in as well, because even that one that just dropped in, the lazy little pop up to right field when it comes down, it boing, it just bounces right straight up, and Marte had to jump up to keep it from going behind him. So interesting playing surface in London for sure. So the Mets lose the opener of the London series to the Phillies. They were definitely looking to at least salvage the second game, but not. So hopefully it wasn't as long of a flight back home to the States. And it was a start for Jose Quintana against former Met Taiwan Walker. It was a good start for one of those guys, not so much for the other. Quintana really struggled, I would say, even though he got out of some jams, especially in that first inning. Gladly trade that those two outs for that one run at that moment of the game. But overall, uh, doesn't get out of the fourth inning. It's 3 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, all earned, 2 walks, 1 strikeouts. We'll talk about Manai. We'll talk about Quintana after this game. But the Mets really couldn't do much against Taiwan Walker either until that sixth inning. They got a couple base runners, and Rob Thompson decides to pull him, go to the bullpen, and I think the New York Mets are saying thank you very much because the Mets were down 3-0 at that point. They end up tying the game. But the Phillies get the lead back in the seventh, and then the ninth inning was just crazy. There's no other way to put it. Uh, Something that's really underrated, I would say, from that ninth inning was the at bat Tyrone Taylor had to start that inning. He draws the walk. McNeil hits a little C&I ball up the middle. Jeff McNeil in his return to the line did have 2 hits that day. Maybe weren't the most impressive hits, but with Jeff McNeil going 2 for 4 in that game, you got to take it. And the Mets are able to scratch out 3 runs in that inning. They take the lead, and then they just wanted to give it right back to the Phillies. It seemed like they tried to get Reed Garrett to go as much as he could. Uh, Unfortunately, Reed was losing his command in that ninth inning. They end up going to Drew Smith. Drew Smith, it was pretty dicey with him as well. Uh, but bases loaded with 1 out. Mets are up by 1. Castellanos at the plate hits that little nubber in front of the plate. Torrance steps on home, turns, fires the first, gets a double play to end the game. So the Mets split the London series with the Phillies 6-5. Obviously, this was quite a game you got to see. Uh, just talk about that last play because it was such a weird double play to end the game. I just want to get your reaction because I know For you, this is
No, no.
the only chance you had to see the Mets this year. You put all your chips in the table for this series, so to get at least one win out of this must have just felt like a little bit of. I mean, obviously you had a good time. You know, it was a good experience, whatever. But to see them get this win, it must have made that trip back to the Netherlands a little easier, just like the trip back home to the United States for them.
I mean, you never want to, for me, obviously, trying to go to a couple of games most years, not every year, but mostly. Um, we are lucky enough to be able to do that. Um, so you always want to, obviously, this was also, it was just the 2 game series. I mean, mostly, that we will see a little bit more games than 2 games. So the odds to see a win are a little bit bigger. Also facing the Phillies, really a better club than we are. So that's no secret. Um, and with the way that ninth inning obviously went, uh, the odds weren't on in our favor. I would say with bases loaded, 1 out and 1 run lead. You obviously think we're gonna lose this game. So um, slither of hope that you maybe give up just one and then have an extra inning and hopefully you uh, will win it there. But obviously the momentum was to the Phillies there, so you hoped for a double play. And we had a pretty good view because I was down the first base line. Um, so in the outfield, my view was directly next to the foul pole, and then so I had a clear view. So um, I saw what happened. I saw he stepped on first, and then it was just I'm not going to repeat that because I already lost my voice a little bit yesterday. It was screaming all the way. I'm a hugger. Not really, again. And I was hugging people. I was giving high fives to the friends and obviously my girlfriend, um, and the friends who I was with. Um, and they were all, especially for my buddy was the first time seeing the Mets. And I was also pretty concerned for him that uh, he went to the Mets and then didn't see his team win a ball game. Which would obviously, like you mentioned, it would still be. We had a nice time. It was a fun weekend, but it made it a lot better. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Um, So with the Mets starters not going deep into this games, they had to ask a lot of their bullpen. I think their bullpen did a really good job. Particularly going to highlight Adrian Hauser and Dednell Nunez. I know Nunez allowed at that time the go-ahead home run to David Dahl, but I think the Mets were just trying to get as much length out of him as they could because their stars weren't able to go deep into games. Uh, Obviously, Hauser went 2 2/3, no runs, 2 strikeouts. Nunez in the Sunday game, inning and 2/3. Obviously, the home run, but got some ground ball outs as well. Um, I thought something that was interesting in that ninth inning because obviously they tried to stick with Reed Garrett. He struggled in that ninth, and then they ended up going to Drew Smith. Um, we've seen them kind of just piece together stuff with the bullpen of late, uh, and we know that usually they like to give the more veteran guys that closer, close it out kind of chance. And obviously Drew Smith has been around the block. I'm not saying Drew Smith is in the same boat as Dednell Nunez when it comes to service time, but Ottavino only threw 6 pitches the day before, and they decided to go to Drew Smith in that outing. Uh, did you find that to be a little curious at all?
And Vino hasn't really lighted up, so it was definitely curious, but I didn't mind it. I think um, I like we mentioned before. I like to see we like to see that Nunez get um, a little bit more into the clutch situations for pitchers. Reed Garrett, I think, has earned it, although he's been iffy as well. I think he definitely has earned that. And Drew Smith is also a guy you you like to see for next year, in my opinion, more than Adam Olavino. So I actually liked that they going to the somewhat younger guys in these situations right now than Adam Ottavino right now. Obviously, when Diaz gets back, it's Diaz's spot. I think that's clear. But for the time being, I love that it was Drew Smith. Actually, let's see what you got, Drew. Back from an injury, having a pretty decent year. It's time for him to uh, to show us because there's a big decision on Drew Smith's hands, and he's probably not going to cost you a ton if you retain him. So I like that. I liked it a lot that they went to Smith over uh, Ottavino, and maybe also the stolen base part. Not sure if that's because they were running some base. Um, might not be the best situation for Adam Ottavino to come in. I obviously think they hoped that Reed Garrett would finish it, which obviously didn't happen. So Drew Smith was the fallback option probably if runners got on, which happened. And so yeah, it's all good to me. Probably those two reasons are probably the main reason why it wasn't Adam Ottavino, and I'm 100% good with that. Good. Yeah, it's so good. Ja, prima. Als jij naar de Action gaat, mag je wel wat dropjes mee. Ja. Geef. En misschien die blikjes. Ik ga morgen nog wel even eerst match kijken en dan. Ja. Tot zo. Goede timing, want de hond doet een beetje mal. Daan was aan het knuffelen net. Ik lag op... Nee, maar ik lag op de bank. En toen zat en ik lag en hij kwam veel voor me staan. Zo. En toen ging ik hem aaien. Ja. En op een gegeven moment denk ik dat ik kon wel tot 10 minuten aan het aaien was. Dat ik dacht, nou, ik ben er nou ook wel klaar mee daar. Maar had weer in de regen gezeten.
I think the interesting thing with Drew Smith too is something we've alluded to. I think actually you did maybe an episode ago. Uh, he's a, I think you and you just kind of maybe said it too. He's a free agent after this year. So if you want to retain him, that's probably not going to cost you a whole lot of money. But if you want to trade him at the deadline, you put him in these high leverage spots, and he does well. It perhaps increases his trade value. So then maybe there's a little bit more you could get in return for Drew Smith. I just thought it was interesting. I wasn't upset about it or anything like that, but um, we just seen them kind of go more to the veteran guys uh, of late, and obviously Drew Smith is a veteran, but he's been hurt for a while. I thought it was just kind of an interesting spot to put him in, figuring I believe that was just his second appearance since coming back off the IL. Obviously, he did walk in a run, but he induced a very soft contact there by Castellanos to get that game-ending double play. So if you want to put Drew Smith in those situations, you're not going to offend me in any way or shape or form. So,
but yeah, same.
Let's talk about Quintana. I gave you the final line. We don't have to go through it again because it's not pretty. But just overall, Jose Quintana this year as my there we go. I thought my computer was going to crash for a second, but no, it's okay. He's made 13 starts this year. He's just 1-5, win-loss record. Maybe not as important a factor in this. But a 5.29 ERA, a 1.43 WHIP, and now he's starting to hit batters too. That's obviously not great. And it's just kind of the same thing now with Jose Quintana. We're just kind of we're just spinning. What's the phrase that they say? We're spinning our tires with Quintana right now. It's just the same thing over and over again. Maybe I'm not using that correctly. It would not shock me. I went to community college, so let's just keep that in perspective here. But his last two outings combined, the Diamondbacks and the Phillies, he's just gone 7 2/3, 6 earned runs, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts. There's also the hit batters in there as well. We've seen the Mets in this new regime with Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns. They talk about accountability. If guys aren't doing the job, um, you could be like Jeff McNeil and basically get benched for the week. You could be Omar Narvaez, get designated for assignment. You could be Adrian Hauser, get bumped to the bullpen. I just have to think at this point, you got to start considering that with Jose Quintana. I get that he's been around the block. He's kind of the same thing I alluded to with Carlos Carrasco. He's a respected veteran. I get that, but he's just not doing anything for the team right now in a real positive way. It's funny because I keep hearing on the MLB Network with Mark DeRosa talking about guys the Mets could trade, and he keeps mentioning Jose Quintana can net you something. I'm like, I don't think Jose Quintana's going to net you much of anything. I mean, a lottery ticket prospect probably, but I mean, if I'm a contending team, I know contending teams need pitching depth, but I think there's probably a lot better options out there than Jose Quintana. So I don't know what the Mets are going to do with Quintana, but if these are the starts he's going to keep giving you, you can't start him every fifth day, in my opinion.
It's starting to sound more and more like it. I know I said last week that he's a guy that makes starts, which is for a team which obviously gonna need starters very soon, probably. Um, you always need that dependable guy that makes his starts. But it's starting to just he's just off on many more uh, things than we are accustomed to see with Jose Quintana. Like you mentioned, hit by pitches, the walks, the home runs. It's not necessarily the Jose Quintana. It's absolutely not the Jose Quintana we saw last year, and it's not Jose Quintana uh, what Jose Quintana made good over the last couple of years was his ability to limit walks and limit home runs, because we know I've mentioned it a couple of podcasts in a row now. We know he's gonna allow his fair share of hits, and right now that's just not happening. So it's definitely not getting deep into the game, as you mentioned. Definitely hurt the bullpen in this series. We are very lucky that after Manaya and um, Quintana pitched, we have an off day, and we had some off days before that, honestly, because probably if they didn't have off days before and after, you probably see Jose Quintana go deeper than, or at least try to go deeper than he did on Sunday. And right now you could piece it together. So if you're going to if Jose Quintana is going to keep this up, I hope the Mets get rid of him sooner rather than later. And maybe what I said last week, the guy that makes his innings, that role probably is more deserving to go to Adrian Hauser right now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it says a lot about Quintana. Obviously, that fourth inning he didn't get out of. He allowed those string of hits. The Phillies tacked on two to take a 3-0 lead, but with two outs in that inning after Rojas gets the single after the amazing catch that DJ Stewart made right in front of you. It's top of the order. It's Kyle Schwarber. It's left on left. Quintana's at 69 pitches, and Carlos Mendoza says that's enough. He's done.
Yeah.
Usually, I would think with a guy of Quintana's stature, his lengthy career in Major League Baseball, a manager might be more apt to give the veteran guy his chance. And then if against the power hitting Schwarber, the left on left, like I mentioned, and then if Real Muto comes up, the inning continues, then maybe you go to the bullpen there. But Mendoza said no. Quintana only threw 69 pitches in the outing. So obviously the pitch count wasn't a factor there. It was Mendoza said he's seen enough, and I think that's a very telling thing. We're definitely at a point in the season where you have to look at their actions rather than what they say to the media. And I think this is an action taken by the manager that says he doesn't have a whole lot of faith in the most veteran starter in that rotation right now. And it just makes me wonder how much longer they're gonna keep this up with Quintana? Are they going to give him a couple more starts and then say, no, we're done? Or now that I believe it's is it Friday because it's that Christian Scott's eligible to come back up because of the 15-day option rule for pitchers. Quintana is supposed to start Saturday for the Mets. Do we see a potential move there where they get Scott back into the rotation and Quintana gets bumped to the bullpen, or they just flat out say, "Thank you very much, Jose. Um, good luck elsewhere." I mean, it's something that I think it's something to potentially watch going into this weekend.
That could definitely be. Like you mentioned, the actions definitely are telling. Um, Great move, by the way, by Mendoza to go to Danny Young there. Can't say that enough because it wasn't necessarily an easy move. It wasn't a move like we we probably don't see a lot in those circumstances. The managers make that move with a lefty-lefty matchup. So great that they just said we have to keep it there. We absolutely had to keep it there um, because if right there you allow more runs, I think the game would probably be over uh, because the first 4 to 5 innings it was all Phillies and it was us, you know, just holding on to any hope with some good, some good getting out of it, some good jobs by some guys to get out of some jams as well, some double plays, which definitely helped. Um, but it was just too much traffic again on Jose Quintana.
Yeah, we talk about the manager, and at this stage, the actions are going to speak a lot louder than the words. I think this all can also be said about the catcher situation with Luis Torrens. Um,
I knew where you were going with that,
did you
Jess.
like that segue? Was that a good segue?
Yeah, yeah, that was great. Yeah,
Well, I mean, it's something to talk about because Alvarez can come back perhaps tonight. I mean, obviously we're recording this Tuesday morning. Well, Tuesday morning my time, Tuesday afternoon for you. Uh, so it's still undetermined whether Alvarez is going to be activated tonight for this Marlins series, or no. It sounds like at some point though this week, Alvarez is going to be back in the lineup, and the Mets have an interesting catching situation to figure out because they got Luis Torrens from the Yankees back on May 31st. And really, since they've got him, he's played the majority of the games. Nido only caught once in that national series. Nido didn't catch at all in the London series. They started Torrens those back to back games, which definitely spoke to me. From where they're what they're thinking right now. Obviously, Torrens is doing a lot with the bat. The 2 home run game against the Nationals. Um, he had a couple hits. He went 2 for 6 in the London series. Had that big walk also late in the game in the Sunday game to keep the inning going. He's thrown out runners. Um, and it just seems like this is probably the direction the Mets are going to go in when Alvarez comes back. And Tomas Nido uh, looks like he could be on his way out. And it definitely won't be to Syracuse because I believe there was a tweet from Mike Puma who said Nido's accumulated enough service time in the major leagues where he can decline being outrighted to AAA and he can go be a free agent. And the Mets will still have to pay the remaining salary for him this year. So that seems to me, anyway, based on the actions, the likely outcome in this situation.
yeah, I would be shocked if it's Torrens, especially how the week has translated. Big 2-0 on Monday, the 2 homer game on Wednesday. Obviously, the Sunday game where he had that nice backpick at first base, and then the double play that ended the game, which obviously was a very good and not as easy play as it looked for Torrens. So um, he has has been a very very good player over the last week. Actually, since we got him, he's been very good. So he's getting the start, so he's getting the playing time. If Luis Torrens wasn't your backup catcher tonight, then would be crazy that he played all those games. So I would be shocked if it's Lorenz instead of Nido who's going. And yeah, I think Nido is time. I mean, I thought that earlier. By the way, he had the ability to become a free agent after the Mets designated him for assignment, and he didn't. So who knows? I think Nido does like the Mets organization a lot and had his opportunity there to go. So maybe he still believes that, still thinks that, and he says, "Well, the Mets have paid me some money after being a Gold Glove finalist to stay, and I want to repay the organization to be still be around and be there." Um, but we'll see. Odds are probably high that Thomas Nido might be looking for at a different organization. Uh, and I would, I mean, Thomas Nido has been with the Mets for a long time. We know what Thomas Nido is. I hope he gets a spot on some major league team because I do think he's a pretty decent backup. It's obviously not great, but his glove is decent enough to be a backup somewhere. And yeah, he's been in the game for a long time right now. So two things. I think we can call him a veteran catcher almost, as long as he's been uh, in AAA slash the major league for the Mets.
I think something too with Luis Torrens, even though it's not a huge age gap, but Nido is in his 30s. Torrens is 28. Um, so there's the younger player there, which I think kind of factors into things. Torrens has he's been a starting catcher before. You think of that season with the Mariners. I got his baseball page right here. He played 108 games. He had 15 home runs. Um, so he's been a starting catcher. I mean, I guess Nido kind of technically was down the stretch in 2022 because he basically jumped James McCann. Uh, but Torrens has he's shown the capability of being a starting catcher in the big leagues and being productive both defensively and offensively because he hit 15 home runs that year for the Mariners. Um, and I think it's an interesting uh, duo, perhaps, between Alvarez and Torrens, because you figure when Alvarez comes back, the Mets might want to ease him in a little bit um, back into action, and maybe they feel a lot more comfortable giving those at bats to Luis Torrens when Alvarez is not in the line compared to Tomas Nido, where Nido is maybe going to give you more defensively. But I think Torrens has shown he's also very capable defensively. We just talked about the back pick in the London series. He threw a Winker out twice in the National Series. And maybe something to factor in too is maybe the starters they've come to Mendoza and said, "Hey, Torrens has really impressed me. I like throwing to him," and all that stuff. So I think Luis Torrens has definitely jumped Tomas Nido on the depth chart. I My mind was pretty much made up about that when the lineup got posted on Sunday. I said Tomas Nido's days are numbered with the New York Mets, and it could be today that the move happens. It could be on Thursday the move happens. Whenever Alvarez gets activated from the IL, I think it's going to be the Alvarez Torrens catching duo for the New York Mets.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so we're in lockstep on that. Don't need to don't need to banter about that anymore. I will say though, it has just been 6 games, 16 at bats for Torrens. Is he going to continue to hit at this pace? Probably not, especially figuring once Alvarez gets back into the groove, he's going to play more often than Torrens. But Luis Torrens, in his week of action with the Mets, has shown what he can bring to the table. And I know I've been very impressed. I know you've been very impressed. And I'm pretty sure the organization has been impressed as well. And they probably had an idea of this coming in because that's why they gave the Yankees the cash to get him.
Absolutely. Yeah, and obviously Mendoza worked with him with the Yankees, so there was some knowledge about Luis Torrens there. Probably that Mendoza knew that Pitchers liked him. Maybe Severino is thrown to him at some point last year. He had some, notions. So um, the Mets knew something about Luis Torrens even before he came to the Mets. So, uh, and if those notes or those thoughts about Luis Torrens weren't great by Mendoza or Severino or guys who've been with the Yankees last year, then he probably wouldn't be a Met.
Yeah. I remember not to keep extending this conversation because there's a lot of minor league stuff we need to talk about. Well, you need to talk about in particular. Um, but I remember spring training Mets Yankees, the game I went to. He played first base and second base in that game. So that's something to factor into his position flexibility. He even played a couple games at third base in AAA this year for the Yankees organization. So there is some flexibility there as well, which makes it even more appealing to keep him around than Tomas Nido.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw how athletic he was with the double play turned yesterday. It wasn't necessarily easy footwork, especially with um, I forgot his name, Garrett Stubbs, uh, going into you. Obviously, that was after the throw, so it probably helped because if it was during the throw, it would probably be a different throw, but still. Um, had to move very quickly around the play to get that double play. So you see a lot of athleticism with uh, Luis Torrens. Can I add one bad note about the London series? By the way,
Oh,
one thing.
anything bad about the London? Well, is it bad about the London series itself, or bad about the Mets that just happened to be in the London series?
No, it's bad about the London series
Okay,
itself.
perfect. I'm all for it. Let's go.
Because one thing that I was a little bit disappointed in, I thought overall the London series did a pretty good job. They had some nice, artists. My girlfriend loves Rob McElhenney, and he was throwing out the first pitch, so those things were kind of cool. Um, One thing I did find a little bit disappointed was merchandise. And they only had uh, pinstripes with names on the back, so they did sell the City Connect ones, but didn't have names on backs of the City Connect ones. And also, what I especially thought was weird is them having the powder blue Phillies jersey, the
Throwback.
City Connect. Yes, the and the two City Connect jerseys they had without names on the back, but what they didn't have were the hats, which is odd
Hmm,
to me because when you wanna buy the jersey, it's probably you will also want to buy the hat.
right.
So that to me was just a weird choice of not having those hats uh, out there. And also, my buddy wanted a Lidor pinstripes, and we were at the workout day, and they were sold out. So at the workout day, we're probably now let's say 1,000 fans or something like that, maybe 2,000.
Hmm.
So that was the first day, and yeah, we asked if they had some jerseys in the back
Hmm.
in his size. So not all the Lindor were out, but in his size they were out, and they didn't. So it was so that size, which was a general size, let me say it that way,
Right.
was sold out for the workout day. To me, that's bananas. That's completely um, missing an opportunity to sell because the stadium was packed
Oh
and
yeah,
there
there's
were
like
like
55,000,
50.
right?
Yes, exactly. So it's more than what City Field can handle. So there's so much opportunity for MLB and for Fanatics and all those things to sell a bunch there because everybody who's there, also maybe not the general baseball fans, wants something, and they didn't necessarily all get an opportunity to get what they want, which is just not a good. That one of the few things I thought that was bad about how they handled it. I mean, we can talk about the field, we can talk about
Mm.
you want to do this, but I think the atmosphere was pretty darn good. Um, um, it's a different environment, and we are used to as baseball fans going to a home game. Obviously, it's not necessarily a home game, for anybody there. I think the Phillies fans were there were a little bit more Phillies fans, so it's probably like 40, 60 matched Phillies if you only count them. But there are also general baseball fans who just like baseball, or people who don't know baseball would want to see a baseball game and it is close. So in that part, I get that the Mets are doing this, and it gives some baseball fans like me the opportunity to be there close. And they did a lot of things right. Um, they had a lot of food. Uh, I think maybe even more than I accustomed to see in City Field, which was shocking to me. Um, they had good beers, which is also good. Kudos. I thought the prices were okay for ballpark food and beverages, which was surprising me a little bit because the tickets are a little bit on the upper side, I would say. So overall, I the workout day was tremendous. By the way, that was really cool that they did that. Um, so yeah, my girlfriend's now screaming Murphy because her
Oh,
favorite
he
player.
beat Utley again.
And yeah, I didn't see that, but he did pose for us, so that was pretty cool. Really came to us, and for our cameras, he was posing with the bat, so that was really cool by Daniel Murphy. There were some great players there. David Privata was obviously there. Um, so they did a lot of things right, but that was just one thing I thought they missed the mark on.
Should have asked Murphy to come on the show when he was posing for you, but oh well, missed opportunity. That's okay.
Yeah, like you would do that.
Well, he's a nice guy. He's a good guy, so maybe he would.
He's definitely a good guy.
So
Brandon Nimmo too, by the way. Yeah, they're a little bit jealous about that, but Brandon Nimmo's a nice guy too.
yeah, I know. I'm not. I'm not jealous. I've prepared. I am. I am very happy for you. I am not jealous at all. That's my written statement with you in your signed Brandon Nimmo jersey and taking pictures.
That's
Right, it's like 2 feet away from you, and not even
yeah,
2 feet.
no closer. Yeah, it was pretty
So,
close. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
ah, lucky you. Lucky you. Well, no, we talked about Tomas Nido probably not going to Syracuse, but maybe there's another minor league team he'd like to go to in the Mets organization. But I don't know. But they're pretty jam packed because they got a lot of good prospects down there, and I know there's a lot to talk about in the week that's gone by since our last episode. So, boy, I'm just gonna mute my mic. I'm gonna go grab a snack, grab a drink, and I'll be back in about 20 minutes. So have at it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go for it. Especially with the Dominican Summer League that's added, because probably including me, and a lot of people don't necessarily recognize the name. So you have to, give a little bit of outside information besides just what they did. So let's get started with the Dominican Summer League match. Uh, Bowen Adderley, who the Mets pivot after not signing Raimel Ortiz due to age issues, has been a good move. So thank you, Raimel Ortiz. The 70-year-old from the Bahamas shows plus speed and power for his age and showed it right away. He went 6 for 15 with a home run, 4 RBIs, and 3 stolen bases in his first 3 games. 17-year-old Jesus Antone with 3 1/3 hitless innings with 4 strikeouts. He struggled over 10 1/3 innings last year for the DSL Mets, so good to see that he's off to a good start. Um, Jermaine Verdu threw 3 1/3 scoreless innings, striking out 4. The Mets signed Jonathan Jimenez last year, and he pitched well over 4 1/3 innings of 1-1 ball. He allowed 1 hit and 2 walks, so striking out 4. Jimenez was a bit of an older signee, as he's now 20, same as Daniel Nunez. So I'm always curious because when they sign like the older guys there, they probably saw something in him that they liked, because mostly they sign younger guys. So to me, it's pretty interesting to follow Jonathan Jimenez in the Dominican Summer League and how he's gonna translate. And a nice name, Hunter Harvey, 70-year-old, opened some ice in spring training, hitting 94 miles an hour. He did walk 4, but kept the opposition off the board with 2 scoreless innings in his debut in the organization. And the DSL Mets orange because the DS Summer League has two teams, the orange and the blue. Shut out the DSL Yankees behind Anthony Crespo from Panama, Yorobert Cadiz from Venezuela, and Elvis Miralles, also from Venezuela. They combined for 7 scorers, allowing just 4 hits with 6 strikeouts and no walks. Always good to see young pitchers not walking guys. Crespo, so the starter, also pitched 3 innings, allowing just 1 unearned run on 1 hit and 3 walks, while striking out 4 on Sunday. So a good start for the 20-year-old from Panama. Another 20-year-old, which is another interesting, older guy that the Mets picked up. So curious to see how he will do. Florida Complex League, Simon won. Hit his 4th home run of the year, and Irvin Coda with another strong start. Coda, 20-year-old from Mexico, threw 4 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts. He now has 19 strikeouts over 10 innings this year. Moving on, St. Lucie. Jesus Baez hit his 7th and 8th of the year. Like Simon Wong, another young player that shows a ton of potential. A.G. Ewing was promoted to St. Lucie, and he's off to a nice start with a 917 OPS to start in. St. Lucie also hit his first home run there. And Joel Diaz pitched 4 hitless innings, allowed just 1 walk, struck out 5, lowered his ERA to 1.80. Brooklyn, it's been a while, but we had a no-hitter for the Brooklyn Cyclones last week. The first no-hitter that actually got 9 innings for Brooklyn in their history. Dakota Hawkins, Joey Lancelotti, and Joshua Cornielli combined for the 9-inning no-hitter. They walked just 3 and 1 hit by pitch and struck out 6. Hawkins went 5, Lancelotti went 1, and Cornielli went 3. Jeffrey De Los Santos homered 3 times in 8 games, also tripled twice in that span. He's 13 for his last 33. Christopher Suero had a nice week. He had a 2-for-3 day, driving in 5 with a home run on Thursday, followed that with a 3-for-3 day with 2 RBIs and 2 walks on Friday. I made it even better with a 2-for-3, 2 home run, 4 runs, 4 RBI day on Sunday. So I would say that's a pretty nice 4 days. Also played left field on Sunday. Christopher Suero is a catcher, so another guy you see, being switched around a bit. Jonathan pitched 5 innings, allowed 4 runs, did strike out 8. Kate Morris also had a rough outing, his first one in Brooklyn. Junior Tillian, the Cyclones shortstop, hit just his 2nd and 3rd home run of the season. The shortstop drove in 4 on Saturday. Moving on to Binghamton, I actually think I'm doing this pretty quickly today. Nolan McLean struck out 8 over 5 innings, but did allow 4. On the first start he made this week, and another start he allowed 2 runs in 2 2/3, striking out 6. The strikeouts are there, but a 5.94 ERA in AA. We can always nobody can't make it all look as easy as Brandon Sprout. That's what I wanted to say. Jalen Palmer quietly having a strong showing in AA, homer twice on Friday and has a 995 OPS with Binghamton since he returned from injury. Ryan Clifford hit his 3rd, 4th, and 5th home run in AA this week, hitting for more power in AA. A very strong start in June, so hopefully his power outside of Brooklyn continues. He's still hitting just 164, but had a 781 OPS, which shows his power and on-base potential. Luis Moreno, guy I think you once said last year that you liked, was good in relief, 5 scoreless innings. He allowed just 2 hits and a walk with 7 strikeouts. And another guy you liked, Wilcon Ramos, kept his scoreless inning streak going. He now has 18 scoreless innings to start this year, so tremendous. AAA Syracuse, Christian Scott shined in his return to AAA. He went 5 innings of 1-run ball, striking out 7. I will let you guess. Make it a duo in his minor league report. How did he allow the run, Christian Scott?
Home run.
Yes, that always seems like it's always the case with Christian Scott. pitches well, but it does allow the home run somewhere. Um, Odd move, in my opinion, because Blade did well, came in relief after Christian Scott and struggled. I think he only went just 0 and 2/3 innings and allowed like 4 or 5. But more, I was more shocked with the move. I thought it was odd to put him in that spot. Um, Surprise, surprise, Luke Ritter homered again. His 12th of the year. Unfortunately, Ben also homered for his 10th of the year to get this week even for us. Ben leads Ritter, which it pains me to say, but I think it's a fun segment to do this every week or every episode. 885 OPS for Ben and 877 for Ritter. So both had a good week again, and you are leading slightly, I would say, in this department, Andrew. And also, by the way, in our fantasy. But I think I did have a good day yesterday with my Chris Paddock pickup, so I'm not out of it this week.
No, but I had a pretty damn
Um,
good day too. So
yeah, you did. We are. I think we had the most points together again, but we have lost some bad weeks against good opponents. But that's an all different story. Mike Rousseau homered twice in one day. It's a 908 OPS in Syracuse. Pablo Reyes, since joining the Mets, he's been on fire. He homered on Thursday and Saturday, and he's having a 982 OPS for Syracuse. Seems like I mention him every week or every time since we got him. Josh Walker struck out the side in his return to AAA and pitched another scoreless frame with 2 strikeouts later in the week. So good to see him doing well there. And Jose Butto was strong on Friday with 6 innings of 2-1 ball. But the story of that game was the relievers, both Matt Festa and Eric Orsi pitched 2 innings, allowing 1 hit without a walk, and both struck out 5 to salvage a 10-inning win. That was the minor league report. So I think I did it for all what I had to say. I think I did it pretty quickly.
well, I can't complain with your performance there. So as much as I want to, but I can't. So. Well, the Mets are back in the good old US of A. They are taking on the Miami Marlins for a 3-game series that begins tonight. It's going to be Jesus Luzardo against Tyler McGill. Seems like every time the Mets play the Marlins, Jesus Luzardo is starting the game, and it doesn't matter if he's struggling like he has
That's
at times
good.
this year, or if he's really, really good. The Mets tend not to do a whole lot against him. So tonight will be an interesting game, to say the least. Wednesday, Battle of Lefties, Braxton Garrett going for the Marlins, and it'll be David Peterson making his 3rd start of the season for the New York Mets. And then it wraps up Thursday with Luis Severino making the start for the Mets and Rodri Munoz making the start for the Miami Marlins. It will be his 5th ever start in the major leagues. 24-year-old. Just pulled up his page because I had no idea who the hell that was when I was going through the games. So, uh, I think I did pretty good with my picture of the series
Yeah,
last week. I went with
which
Adrian
sucked
Hauser.
because which sucked because I wanted to do exactly the same thing. I told you that.
Well, it didn't go
Um,
exactly how I thought it was going to be for Hauser. I thought it was going to be more he was going to piggyback Quintana because I had absolutely no faith in Jose Quintana to get out of the, give him 5 innings. So I thought Hauser was going to have to pitch at least, maybe 2 or 3. Pitched 2 2/3 on Saturday, didn't allow any hits, struck out 2. So I think I nailed that pretty good. Um,
you sure did. You sure did.
so, well, I mean, you went with Alonso, but I mean, he got the RBI by the hit by pitch. So, that's something.
Thank you.
Maybe he wasn't exactly the hitter of the series, but, he had a big RBI.
Yeah.
Also a big welt on
Yeah.
his thigh, probably.
What?
Big welt. Like when because he got hit by the pitch. It like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah. It showed how bad Alvarado was, by the way, because
oh, yeah.
he, oof, he, uh, he really helped us there with a couple of wild pitches and that hit by pitch on the 2 strikes. We did exactly the same with Reed Garrett, but oh
Yeah.
well.
Yep. Anyway, all right. So it's your turn to pick the pitcher. I will be picking the hitter. I'll let you go first. Who is your pitcher of the series?
after the save, after the save on Saturday, I'm going with Drew Smith getting big outs for us in the series, um, getting more responsibility and getting the job done.
All right. I like the pick. I'd like to pick Peterson, but we've picked him. Well, you've picked him uh, twice already, so I don't want to jump on that bandwagon. It's too easy to pick Luis Severino. So let's go with Tyler
You're the
McGill
hitter.
to. What was that?
You're hitters. You're
Oh,
hitters.
oh,
You
I'm the
pick
hitter. That's
the
right. That's right.
hitter.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Duh, you just said Drew Smith. Oh, I'm. Oh well. I was bound to mess up at some point today, so um, I guess I just had to save it for the end. Hitter. Uh, oh, let's
Yeah,
go
no,
with let's go with Tyrone Taylor to have a big day. One of these games, he's going to play against one of these lefties, I think, and I like the at bats he's playing together. We mentioned his walk in the ninth inning on a really good at bat, really started
definitely.
things for the Mets. Um, so let's go with Tyrone Taylor to have a good day one of these games against a lefty, whether it's Luzardo or Garrett. So let's go Tyrone
Yeah,
Taylor.
we are in that spot that we're not necessarily picking. We're trying to do it a little bit different. Let me say it that way.
Yep, yep, I agree. I think that's it's not fun to pick the same guys over and over again. You got to mix it up.
Exactly.
So I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Queen's Connection. I think we're going to hit the over. I believe we're going to hit the over of an hour and 5 minutes. So I think we're going to hit the over.
All
Mostly,
right.
mostly because we had some banter every now and then that contributed to it.
We
So
all have banter. It's
that's
part
right.
of the fun.
Like, well, it's part of it. I don't know if it's part of the fun per se, but sometimes it's at my expense. So, all right, sir. Thank you for joining. Glad you got back safely. And enjoy the series of the Marlins. I know. I'm sure you will, and um, just don't have to recuperate as much. Not like you jump a bunch of time zones to get back. So, body should
It was
keep
just
out.
one time zone.
See,
Yeah, we
super
are
easy.
just 1 hour this time instead of 6 hours. So definitely, the train ride was also pretty, comfortable, a little bit more comfortable than a plane, I would say. So definitely worked out for me well.
Perfect. Perfect. That's just what we want to hear. All right, everyone. This has been the Queen's Connection, a production of Patent Sports Creative. Follow us on the social medias, Facebook, Twitter. Subscribe wherever you're listening, YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. And thanks for listening and enjoy the series against the Miami Marlins. We'll talk to you Friday before the Padres series.